Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Let's Taste with the Intrepid Wino. My name is James Garesbrook and thank you very much for joining me. I have been sent some more samples from former podcast guests, Dave and Nathan from Out of Step Wine Co. based in the Yarra Valley. I have done some previous editions of Let's Taste looking at some previous vintages of Out of Step Wine Co. Dave got in contact with me a little while ago to let me know that they had some new releases and he wanted me to have a look at them, and I of course jumped at the opportunity. I'm a big fan of what those guys are doing, and I was excited to see the new wines. Now I think I have looked at the previous vintage of the first wine, and it was a previous, if not the previous vintage of the third wine, but the second wine is a brand new one for them. So let's start off with the Willowlake Vineyard Sauvignon Blanc, 2016, recommended retail of $28. Sauvignon Blanc, as I'm sure I've said on previous editions, probably looking at this previous wine indeed, Sauvignon Blanc is a variety originating from particularly the Loire Valley in France. Sancerre, Pouilly-Fumé, has become the champion variety of New Zealand. Chile has done some pretty exciting things with Sauvignon Blanc of late, but Australia has a lot of Sauvignon Blanc planted. The Adelaide Hills is probably one of the better known regions for the variety. But I have always been a big fan of Yarra Valley, particularly in the more elevated regions around Gembrook, Hoddles Creek. One of the, what I think is consistently the best Sauvignon Blanc in Australia is the Gembrook Hill Sauvignon Blanc, and I have been a big fan of what the Out of Step Wine Co. Sauvignon Blancs have expressed in the past. Willowlake is, I believe, from Lusatia Park, possibly. No, it's a Willowlake Vineyard. It is definitely part of that upper, that more elevated part of the Yarra Valley. I think that's a really important thing to consider when you look at Yarra Valley Sauvignon Blanc. It's a little bit cold. It's not really expressing much aromatically at the moment. It is quite subtle, very complex. It's not your typical, very obvious aromatic Sauvignon Blanc, but it has some quite mature stone fruits moving into some sort of kumquats, and there's some nuttiness in there as well, a bit of dried herbs, and possibly even a little bit of lees derived kind of yeasty cheesiness. Let's taste. At first, it presents as being quite exuberant. Lovely ripe fruit on the front palate, but it has some nice depth to it. It is a more textural style of Sauvignon Blanc. So if you are looking for a Sauv Blanc that is all front palate, all really ripe tropical fruits on the nose, this is definitely not one for you. This is absolutely a more serious Sauvignon Blanc in my opinion. It is more food-friendly Sauvignon Blanc. It has a little bit more richness to it. It's got more depth and carry through on the palate. I'm still tasting it in the mouth, which is really, really exciting to see from this variety, which I think, for the most part is, a lot of the wines made from Sauvignon Blanc aren't showing the true potential. And I think this is a really good example of what you can get from Sauvignon Blanc if you leave it, if you have it in a nice cool spot, more elevated, leave it on the vine a little bit longer, you actually pick up a little bit more personality, and you can make what I think is a more interesting wine. So very solid start, and look, for $28, that is really crazy good value. So wine number two, interestingly, is also recommended retail of $28, is the Lusatia Park D Block Sauvignon Blanc. The guys are, in a quite tongue-in-cheek way, saying, yes, we're doing single block Sauvignon Blanc. Not really something you would see outside of France and maybe a little bit in New Zealand, but they must have done it for a reason, so I'm excited to see why they have chosen to do a single block Sauvignon Blanc. As sort of subtle and restrained as the first wine, showing a little bit more aromatic component, moving into some very delicate dried floral notes. Probably slightly yellowy green fruits. Again, super complex. Very, very subtle, not really picking up a lot. Let's taste. A bit more concentration here, a little bit warmer and richer, but even more elegant, even more kind of complex, really exquisitely balanced. I like the fruit is very nicely ripe. There's nothing kind of green about it on the palate. It's not herbaceous in a really obvious way. It's nicely, it's just well done. It's like a piece of meat that's been perfectly cooked all the way through, and you just capture it at the right point. I like the texture here. The first one sort of seemed to have a little bit more richness. Here it's very, very delicate, very elegant, very pared back, but builds beautifully on the palate. I think if you're looking for a really, really interesting Sauvignon Blanc, I think this is probably one of the better Sauvignon Blancs I've seen in Australia. I would be really excited to see that with some age. I think that's a one that could give 10 years, 15 years even, and show so much more interesting characters. So guys, kudos for that one. That is an absolute stunner, and that is possibly the best value white wine I've tasted all year. It really is a stunning wine. And I can't believe I'm saying that about Sauvignon Blanc. But anyway, the last wine is made from a variety, of course, very close to my heart, being an Italian grape. It is the 2015 Malakoff Estate Vineyard Nebbiolo. Malakoff Vineyard is in the Greater Pyrenees region of Victoria. Nebbiolo most certainly is considered to be the most noble grape variety in Italy, and does come from, being from the northern Italy. It's slightly cooler, but one of the really important parts, apart from elevation aspect, is the fog, the nebbia of Piedmont, particularly in that Langhe zone, that provides a lovely cozy blanket for the grapes. I remember being pretty impressed with the previous vintage, if it was a 2014. So I'm excited to see what the 2015 has to show. So obviously these are two different vintages. Color-wise, it's not super intense. It's a nice color. Very classic of Nebbiolo. I'm seeing it and thinking that they've had quite a delicate touch here. Not a lot of maceration here. Fairly straight up and down. I'm not seeing any rough edges at all here. Reasonably classic fruit profile on the aromas for Nebbiolo. Having said that, there's not a lot of interest here. I'm not seeing much that's really inviting me in. But having said that, you know, I am reasonably particular with the Italian varieties. Unfortunately, I'm going to be a little bit tougher on those because I hope for more. But we might see something more interesting on the palate, so let's taste. Good weight, good structure. It's sort of quite up and down on the palate. There's no breadth to it, and so it's not quite hitting the sides of the mouth, into the cheeks. The tannins are quite soft. There's some nice tightness to it, but there's no tension, if that makes sense. The Nebbiolo typically, you know, has a kind of a bit of a bite to it, and I'm not quite seeing it here. Look, for $33, I think that is definitely worth a buy because it certainly has varietal character of Nebbiolo. But I think it could go a little bit funkier. It could go a bit wilder. You know, maybe extend the maceration, get a little bit more out of it. For, you know, the alcohol, I mean, it's coming in at 14%, so, you know, that's a nice spot to be in. But I don't want to say it's sort of too clean, but it's too contained. I'd like to see the kind of the reins let off a little bit with that one. But look, it is still a really good wine. And I think it's a very good buy for $33. But the Sauvignon Blancs for me have really hit me for a 6. Those 2016s look super solid. That D Block is a stunner. One of the best white wines I've tasted this year. So congratulations, guys. I think those look fantastic in Nebbiolo. It's definitely a work in progress. I'd like to see more vintages of that one because Malakoff is producing some great fruit here in Victoria. And certainly some of the more interesting wines I've tasted in the last year or two have come from that vineyard. But thank you very much, guys, obviously, for the samples. It's been a pleasure to actually look at the new wines. And thank you guys for watching as well. If you did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, leave a comment below and share it. Make sure you subscribe to the Intrepid Wino YouTube channel. You can see many more editions of Let's Taste in the past and hopefully in the future as well. Come visit me at intrepidwino.com. I'd love to hear from you. Get in touch with me there and follow me on social media at Intrepid Wino. But guys, until next time, cheers.